like music playing in the background is actually a song called The Club Going Up on a Tuesday. I thought it was fitting. But for whatever reason, I can't get the sound. So Ed is actually just going to sing for us to get everybody hyped. Go ahead, Ed. I cleared the way for you. You can do your thing.
Do you guys? Is there another Ed in here, Eduardo? I think that you're being volunteered by default.
What's up? What's up, everybody? Glad you all are here. Getting ready to rock. You know what we do every Tuesday night? It is a special time where we come together and we do one thing and one thing only, and that is napkin underwrite deals. And I'm super excited, especially for new people that's on here first time. What's up? Welcome, welcome. And if it's not your first time and you are here, that means you see some value. You think this is worth it. You think, this is something I can continue to learn from. And I'm super excited for you all because it takes the reps, right? Matthew is here. I've seen Matthew several times before. Richard's in the car, dedicated. Glad the phone's not in his hand. He's doing what he needs to do. Like, this is what it takes, right? It's showing up again and again. BB, I see you. Francis, how are you? Putting in the time, dedication. Look, she's ready. She gave me the thumbs up. I don't even know how to do the thumbs up. I know how to do the raise the hand. I found out like last week, and you're on thumbs up. I love it. Love it, love it. My guy Darrow's in the house. What's going on, everybody? We're going to get this thing started. Hey, Carmen. So like we always do at this time, here's how, you see, I'm dropping all the bars that should have music attached to this. We're going to upgrade this. We're going to have the best nightly show that is possible, right? All the other Zoom calls, they're going to start to get jealous because we're not just playing music. We're having an experience. All right, that's what we're going to do it.
We're going to get a DJ at one point.
Right, yeah. No, we got to do better than just a DJ, right? Here's what we're going to do. Like we always do at this time in the beginning, I want to make sure that we understand the number one rule, the number one purpose, why we're here. It is to make connections. That's the whole point of being in a group. It's the whole point of working together. I just saw the guy, the myth, the man, the legend, billionaire MFP. We changed his name. We added the MF. If you were on the call yesterday, you know exactly what MF stands for because you heard what he did. If you were not on the call, then MF stands for multifamily. We just leave it at that. All right. You can fill in the lines wherever you need to fill in, but he is the superstar of the team, talking and building relationships with brokers. Yesterday's Zoom was amazing at 2 p.m. If you missed it, no problem. You can catch the replay, but it's better to catch it live. We had people that were on there that never called the broker before, ever. And not only were they getting practice live, we were actually calling brokers and making connections live. We had recorded calls that are getting teed up for next week and giving you guys feedback, which is something you guys can do. Actually, Dara was one of the individuals that sent over a call that he did. He recorded himself talking to a broker and he said, hey, billionaire Peter, Eddy, would you take a listen and give me your feedback? How can I get better? How can I do this better? And we're going to do that. And we're going to send it back to him. And he graciously said, hey, it's cool if you guys just do it live so everybody can be able to share it. So that's something you guys can do as well. But let's start at the beginning. First things first, this is the manners, okay? This is the part where you're coming to the restaurant and you're checking to see if there's tables available, right? You got to do what you see. Myself, let's see who else. All right, we got Marinan that did it as well. I love it. Let's see who else. Renee did it. I'm gonna see who here is gonna pay attention to what I'm saying without saying it. Ed did it, but did it halfway. He's missing something. Let's see who else is paying attention to what I'm saying and if everybody will catch on.
Nobody cares that I'm in California. They're like, oh, this poor.
Let's see what you catch. That's right. You're missing the state. You want to change your name, either put your name, your @ sign, put your state that you're in, Love it seeing the changes happen. And you want to put your contact information. This is super important. I met somebody today. We were at a property. It was a portfolio deal, 17 units total. And one of the parties that were there has a long list of aggressive and angry buyers. They're aggressive because they're looking to buy yesterday, and they're angry because she isn't giving them enough deals to satisfy them. And so now we're going to connect, and I'm going to be sending her deals. Now, the problem is, if I just came on here and I didn't see anybody's states, I couldn't ask you guys. Like, I couldn't say, hey, let's see who I can pick on here. Like, for example, Nakisha, I don't know what state you're in. And I don't know how to get in contact with you because your name isn't showcasing that. So it makes it harder for me to cut you in a deal, right? Now, Natasha got it down pat. So I could, in fact, there is a deal that they sent me. It is in Arizona. And I could definitely call her and say, hey, I got a deal. Can we work together? All right. Now, step 2, Billionaire Peter is already ahead of the game. You see it in the chat. If you're not paying attention, please do. You see, he put his information in there. He did it in 3 steps. He put his contact information, all of them. You see his social media on there. His phone number is already on there, his websites and everything like that. Then you also see that he put his superpower. What is he great at? What is he looking for? What should you be looking for from him, I should say? And then he did the 3rd step is, what is he looking for? Okay. I was talking to an amazing individual today about a podcast, and he is a go-giver. He's just like top tier connector. And one of his faults is, and as he admitted, was not asking enough, right? He's always giving, but he doesn't ask in the same amount of intensity that he gives. And that's not good. You have to make sure that you're part of the ask equation as well. So what is it that you're looking for? Let other people bring you the success and happiness that you're looking for while you are focused in and helping other individuals get to what they're looking for as well. All right, so that's what it is. I want everybody to kind of populate the chat, put that information in there. Listen, it doesn't make sense if you are here and you are not looking to connect. If you are here and you're just trying to get information, I can promise you one thing, you will get the information. But at the end of the day, you won't be able to do anything with it because your network is still too small. And we don't want you to go through all that just to be able to have that, right? So we're going to get started. I got my guy Ed here. Ed the Great, the Wizard.
I have a question for
I saw my man Jerry Wonder, Jerry Money Machine, Jerry Green. These are all nicknames he has, people. And that's because he has the connections. He is the debt manager. He's a debt broker, I should say. Him and his wife are a dynamic duo, and they are part of the ecosystem. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So if you've been with us since Sunday, you know, each and every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we are doing what's called the Activation Zoom. Typically at 8 o'clock on Sundays, p.m. Eastern Time. Normally what happens is if you work a job, it's actually, I forgot the term, it is a scientific term that most people get evening clinical depression between the hours of 8 and 10 p.m. on Sunday nights. And it is rooted to the fact that Monday you have to go back to work. And we understand that, right? And so we did the activation Zoom. We set fire on that bleep, right? To keep you focused, keep you back in the game, because sometimes we understand and we know that it is difficult being an entrepreneur. It is lonely being an entrepreneur. Let's just call the spade a spade. Especially if you're the only entrepreneur in your family, it is lonely. People don't quite understand you anymore, right? You're an outcast, to say the least. And that's okay, because every Sunday, we are all outcasts together in the same community, pushing each other forward. And the great thing is We bring superstars in our eyes, celebrities in our eyes that are only different from us because they have already done what we have not yet done. They have the experience from what we have not yet done. But the best thing about it is they are teaching us. So, for example, on Sunday, we had Mr. Rockstar himself came in, Rockstar Multifamily came in and blessed us with understanding where the market is and how to be able to go after what you need to go after. And that was with Robert Martinez. And if you missed that one, definitely you can catch it. Go to the YouTube page, go to the Facebook page. You can be able to catch it, right? And then yesterday, we had myself and we had Mr. Billionaire MF Peter knocking out and helping people make calls. We were calling brokers live. We were literally showcasing where to find the brokers, what mindset you should be having when you're making these phone calls, what kind of communication you should be having. The best thing about it is you can be on the call and you can just put it on speaker and you can have 30, 40, 50 people jump in to help you talk to a broker. So it doesn't even matter if you have any experience. That's what a community is about. And tonight, if the Napkin Underwriting going down, led by us. And then on Wednesdays, bi-weekly, we have Mr. Jerry Wonder himself and his wife. They come in and they teach us about the financing. So if you pay attention, on Sunday night, you get activated. Monday, you talk to a broker, you get a deal sent to you. Tuesday, you underwrite the deal. By the time you talk to Jerry and his wife on Wednesday, you would have found a good deal, know how to underwrite it, got the elevated underwriting done, and now you're ready to have a conversation with Jerry on how and where to find the money. We are about action, we're about results, and I'm glad you guys are all here. So if you are excited to dig in tonight, let me get some activity in the chat. Let's see, what should we do? Let's put some smiley faces in the chat. Let's do that. And if you are live and I can see your face, let me just see the pearly 32s or 12. If you're left with 12, there's no judgment, right? It's no judgment here, right? It is what it is. I'm seeing some smiley faces. There we go. Carolyn turned it on so I can see it. I love it. Let's get some more. Let's hype this thing up. Let's get into it because tonight we have deals that we are going to underwrite and we have a couple. We have a couple good ones actually. So I'm going to make my guy co-host and let's spotlight you there, bro. Oh wait, before I do that, let me also take the opportunity to share this with everybody as well. So everybody should have what we call your napkin. If you don't have it, let me know and we're going to plug it in the chat for you right now. Please let me know if you have your napkin. If you do not, say, I don't. And we'll put it in the chat for you right now. All right, perfect. Now, oh, actually, some people are saying they don't, which is great. Let me do something. I'm going to put the napkin in the chat. So regardless if you had the old one or not, you want to use the new one because we refined our system so that you can be able to get your deals sent over to the underwriters like Ed even faster. So we want to make sure you're not sending it to the older version. You want to send it to a new one. And I'm going to show you guys what all that looks like in 2 seconds. Ed, looks like you're about to say something.
Yeah, we all want to make sure we also have the updated submission link.
Yep.
Perfect.
I'll show you guys right now. So if you guys see, this is a please use your napkin. You really will know the difference because it says make a copy up here. Please use your napkin. And when you come here, obviously you want to put the address in here and you fill out everything and we'll watch Ed and myself go through this. So don't worry about any of this if you're just not seeing it. And sometimes you scroll on some of this and you see some notes pop up just to kind of give you guys reminders of what it is. Now, when you got a deal and you put it through and you know how to use this thing, you're going to click this submit form and you see there's a tiny URL here that says tinyurl.com/napkin done, right? Now you can just click on this right here and it'll pop up the form for you. Hold on, somebody's trying to come in the room. There you go. All right. So if you click this right here, it'll pop up the form and it'll bring you to this right here. And you see it's a response time 24 hours. You fill out this information. You can't move forward unless you fill out this information, especially the start stuff, because it's how we get back in contact with you. When you scroll further down, you see we have a space for you to upload the T12s, the rent rolls, profit and loss, the OM, offer memorandum, and then pictures. I like it better if you can just upload a link to the pictures, but if it's just several pictures, then that's fine too. And then you want to take a screenshot. So for those of you who don't know what that looks like, you want to come in here and you want to take a screenshot, or you can just do this right here and then do that. Now you have your screenshot. It's going to be right here, but I'll let it go into my desktop, and then you want to upload that screenshot in here. Okay. Finish putting this information out. Super simple. It's you literally just looking at one paper and putting it in the next, then hit submit. Now, what happens after you hit submit is in 24 hours or less, you're going to have somebody from the underwriting team reach out to you and saying, hey, I got your deal. We're starting to underwrite it right now. We're starting to underwrite it right now. Here's a link to the Calendly. Go ahead and book your time so that we can get on a Zoom call together, and I can not only go over the napkin with you, but go over the more detailed underwriting of the elevated underwriting is what we call it. And then in addition to that, we'll tell you, hey, here's what the next steps should look like. Here's what to go back to say to the broker, or here's what to X, Y, and Z. And now you are on your way to be able to get everything you need done and ready to take it to the next step. All right.
Can I elaborate on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing I want to make clear, and Eddy explained it very well, but I want to elaborate a little bit, is, guys, the napkin underwriting is simply that. Like, it's very surface level. You're not diving deep into the T12. You're not diving deep into the OMs and the rent rolls. But in order for it to move quicker, doing the napkin first gives you an understanding of what the deal looks like, surface level. But then you and I together will go in, dive deep, look at all the different things, question where the T12 may be inaccurate, maybe a little odd or off, or like, hey, well, this number doesn't make sense, and do that with the rent roll as well. Because one thing I learned by doing it hands-on. I learned by getting thrown into the fire and learning how to underwrite. I got thrown into the deep end with it, essentially. So I don't think it's fair for me if you guys submit something to Napkin Underwriting and I just say, hey, this doesn't work. It doesn't help you. That didn't help. That would have never helped me. I wouldn't have learned. I will share my screen, walk you through the line by line on my calculator, and we'll go through and say, like, hey, these are the questions that we need more answers to. And if you want me or Pete or Eddy or anyone on the team to be on the call with you, we'll happily be on the call with you to walk through like what it takes, what questions we need to ask, and what info we need. And then we'll even submit an LOI. I've submitted, like, this week alone, like, I think, well, actually last week in total, was like 4 or 5 LOIs just from people submitting it through the napkin. And if everything looks good and I have the numbers, we could send it out in 30 minutes. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So as long as we can get in contact with the broker, or we have everything we need, I don't see why we shouldn't send out an LOI as soon as we're good to go, you know? But I want to make sure that you guys understand where that offer is coming from, why we're offering it. And at the end of the day, we want to work with you guys, you know?
Yep.
Doesn't help if I just say no, like, that deal. Doesn't help anything.
Yep. And full transparency, why would we do this? Right? It's very simple, very easy, because we're looking for more people to work with, right? We want, you guys to be able to know how to underwrite and do napkin underwriting very well. We want you to be able to know how to do the next level of underwriting, then the level 4 of underwriting. Why? Because it's less that we have to go back and try to do if you already know how to do those steps. So when you send a deal over, we're already on, level 5 and 6 now, and we can move on, and you can start to learn even more important parts of the business, right? Underwriting is great, but it's not the whole part of the business, right? So we want to make sure that we can get you guys situated and moving forward. So my guy, Ed, you got the floor. Now, really quick, I want to ask, does anybody have a deal that they want to underwrite? And we can underwrite for you. If not, I'll let Ed run wild.
Eddie, you muted. Should I?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just saying you went on mute.
Oh, sorry about that.
Did anyone have anything? If you do, raise your hand, or if you have any questions before we go into this, let me know. If not, I do have something ready just to run through. Carmen, yes. Did that work? Did I ask you to mute?
Hi, I have. Oops, hold on. I don't know what's going on.
Are you on another device?
Yeah, it sounds like, are you on 2 devices?
That's pretty cool though, I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so we'll wait for Carmen to see if she can fix that. If not, then maybe you could type it in, kind of let us know what your question was.
Oh wait, I think I do see you on 2 screens.
I'll try to figure it out. I'll work it out with her.
Okay.
I'll let you get started.
Cool.
And you should be able to share and everything, Ed, because you're co-host.
Okay. So.
Can you hear me, guys?
There you go. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right, what do you got for us, Carmen? And I see, I hope it's David or is it David? I'm not sure, but we'll get you next.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had 2 devices, and I mean 2 devices and.
No, listen, I get it. I get it, right? You see me and you like, I want to see 2 of this guy at the same time, right? And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that.
So, quick question: do you have a particular buy box that you want to see when we do these napkins, or is whatever we have at the moment that we can provide?
Got you. So I would say it depends on 2 things, really, or it depends on 1 thing. Are you sending us a deal that you want, or are you sending us a deal that you just want to wholesale, right? Or essentially assign to somebody else. If it's a deal that you want, then you should be sending deals that are in a market that you are interested in, right? If it's not, like if you could care, like for example, I can say this with no shame. If somebody sent me a California deal, I would still run this through there. I know I don't want it, right? But I would still run it through it because I would just assign it. If it's something that I don't want, I'm going to assign. If it's something that I do want, then I would pay attention to it even more. So it just depends. Like, are you in this phase right now where you okay with assigning something? Or are you dead staff focused on, hey, I want to look for X property and X location, and that's all I want to look at?
So it can be a small one, like 6
Yeah.
units. Or...
Yeah.
So to elaborate real quick, I underwritten 4 units. I've underwritten 977 units with other people, 1,000 units. To me, it's whatever you want to get out of it. If you want to underwrite the 6 unit and you're like, hey, I have some questions, send it through. Or whatever your intention is with it, like Eddie was saying, at the end of the day, we're a resource. I want to make myself available to people who want to put the effort in and want to learn, at the end of the day, because that's how I got it. So I get it. Like, if I just sat down and watched people do Zooms, I would have learned, but it's much faster if you do it hands-on. And if you go through the practice, and if you go through the OMs and T12s and you see what to look for, and they're all different. Like, you could do it 100 times, 1,000 times. On that next one, you're like, I've never seen this. Like, what the heck is this? But
so another question too, like, so, and thank you for answering that. Would you consider RV deals like, like land with RV spaces?
Mobile home parks?
Sort of. Not, it's more for RVs, for people vacationing and they rent RVs. Like it's a commercial. It's commercial. I mean, it's not an apartment, right? Because you don't have like a steady monthly income like an apartment, but it's like, it's kind of rental. And there's another deal also. I think it's pricey, but it's so attractive because it's in a really good area here in the Panama City Beach area, very touristic and high end, like Class A type of property that is 30 units, fully furnished, and the whole building is for sure temp rental. Is that, I never heard anyone in all the groups never analyze something like that. What do you think about?
I'd be able to analyze all of the above because to me, it's all it comes down to is I'm breaking down the units, expected units, or sorry, income, expected income per month, your expenses, all that stuff is the same. The only difference is you have to know what your expectation is on the return side because I can't determine that for you. So I wouldn't know what to tell you is like I can tell you what the numbers are, but for me to say, oh, this is a great mobile home park or RV deal, I wouldn't necessarily say that because I don't know what you or any buyer you sell this to would consider a good deal for that specifically. Like they could say, I want $50 per unit cash or cash flow a month, or I can go off of our metric on the cash on cash, and I can say, yeah, if it fits that criteria, it doesn't matter how we get there. At the end of the day, it's money comes in, money goes out. What's the return? And I can figure that out for you.
So basically looking at the deal, doesn't matter. Okay. All right. I know there's someone else have questions, so I'm gonna play with my computer to find the ones that I have here. In the meantime, when you answer other people's question, and if we have time to come back to me, we'll do it. I wanna be respectful for other people's time.
I appreciate that. But yeah, definitely. My number's there as well. Even if it's not here, you feel free, anyone on this call, give me a text. I was telling someone earlier today, actually, I think it was Daryl, where although, yes, it's real estate and it's income, I'm really just playing around with an Excel spreadsheet. And the numbers, as long as they make sense in coordination to the real estate and the numbers and they all add up properly, all I'm doing is playing around with numbers until it tells a story that I want it to tell. So David, you're unmuted. Yeah, go for it.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
Appreciate you guys taking the call. Just had a few questions because I love the spreadsheet you guys have with the Google Docs and stuff. And with the caprateindex.com, that's a great website. I didn't even know about that. So that's cool. Appreciate you guys sharing that. I just had a question. How do you guys define your class A, B, and C? And does your cap rate change for each class you guys have?
Mm-hmm. So for your cap rate, in fact, here, let me just real quick. So I'm going to show you, if you guys looking at the spreadsheet, right? There's a standard way to do it, but then there's also like additional data you can input to be able to get a more clear picture of what you would classify as class A, B, or C. The easiest way to go about doing it is if you look on a spreadsheet here, and I have it kind of spread out, right? So class A is something that's built within the last 10 years. Class B is something that's built in the last 10 to 20, and class C would be something that's built in the last 20 plus. Now, this is just a general rule, but it works because typically it's rare that you would see a class C, a class A building in a class C area. It's also rare you would see a class A building with class C work that needs to be done, right? So if you go based off of the year built, it's easier to just group it in there. The other reason why it doesn't necessarily matter is because typically when you're looking at your rate as far as your expenses and stuff like that, you're typically going to be at 45 or 50%. unless it's one of these like crazy deals and it's like 60% or something like that expenses, and 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a creative deal anyway. And that's a whole different headache that we would work out in detail and et cetera, et cetera. But that would be a good problem, right? Because then that means there's opportunity to turn this business around, essentially. Because that's what we're looking at, right? Like, yes, it's multifamily, but to the Carmen's point, when she's like, hey, I got this other type of deal, it's not quite multifamily. It's just, at the end of the day, like what Ed is saying, we're looking at numbers and we're looking at what makes sense as we use this as a operation for a business. If I put X amount of dollars in and we take X amount out and we do X, Y, and Z afterwards, how much rate of return are we getting? That's what we're looking at and playing with all day long. And it just so happens that we're doing it in the multifamily space for these couple examples. So it doesn't really matter that much, but just to make it generalized, you want to be able to do 45 or 50%, and you want to do it by year. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, ask the broker. Say, hey, what would you classify this as? Class A, B, or C, right? If they're wrong on it, then it's a problem, right? So if you don't feel confident there, then I would just ask the broker to get the detail.
I got you. Now, is year built the only thing you guys are using for like the like B, A, B, or C, or are you guys using like criminal ratio, like criminal rate, things like that as well, or just pure?
So not for the napkin,
I
right?
got you.
When we
I
get
got
to
you.
the
This is
next
just quick and
level, I
dirty.
start to look at what's the neighborhood and this, that, that. But right now, I just want to look, because listen, you might find some deals that like do great, but then as far as the numbers go, but then when you start to look at other details, you're like, oh, this wasn't really worth my time. So, and the opposite, right? So I typically don't look at that. I want to first see, obviously we know the location, right? Because it's going to be in a state that I want, right? But then I want to see like, you know, what they're asking for, what's the potential here? Is there any value add? And what should I be offering? And if those are somewhat close to what I like, then I send it up to get it elevated underwriting. And that's when you go more deeper detail and you kind of dig into that. But for this part of the game, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying on that or doing the extra work. You got to first see if on paper, does this thing make sense?
I got you. Okay.
I want to add to that too, real quick, is when talking about a locations class, not the building, the location itself, because there is two different, you can have an A-class building and a C-class location. You can have a C-class building and an A location. That is first defined by your buy box. If I want a C-class neighborhood, or if I want an A-class neighborhood, then I shouldn't be looking in C-class neighborhoods. Simple as that. Like if I want the C-class building in an A-class neighborhood, then I should be looking in A-class neighborhoods. And the more you look into the city, the deeper you dive into it, you'll see the difference of what a C-class building in that neighborhood looks like and what an A-class building in that neighborhood looks like based on the different features. You know, if you're in a city where majority of the buildings are just older by nature, then you have to consider that, like, you shift your timeline. Like we could give you one timeline, but in one city, you're like, oh, every building is built before that timeline or that year, for example. So that's where you really want to dive deep into the market that you're actually looking to buy in, and that'll allow you to understand more of the differences and be more accurate with those labels, essentially.
Okay, cool. Now, I guess one take, because I've been talking, I'm in construction myself down in New York City. I've been talking to some developers, and they're telling me some things of be wary of buildings built 2020 plus, because there were some shortcuts that were taken. What are your takes on that? Have you guys had any conversations with developers?
So personally, not that I won't look at it, but usually if it's built in 2020 and they're selling it now, they're either developed like contractors or builders or someone that has added all the value that I can almost add. Like your upside is a lot more limited. Is it safer? Possibly, yes. But in regards to the value add component of it, you can only come in and really manage it better, which is improving management and adding more additional income, or stabilizing it better because they mismanaged it for whatever reason. I personally, it's not my top 3 things is like a 2020 build. That's not one of the top 3 things I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm excited to buy that. Just based on those things I said. I prefer something that has bigger upside. I prefer something that's tenants have had more time to get out of or further away from market rent, to be honest. Like if no one's rent's been increased in 4 years, guess what happens when I come in? We're gonna get rents up. We're gonna get new tenants in. We're gonna have units improved. You have more value added. So I can't speak too much on that because I'm not familiar with the construction side of things. But I think that's where your inspection is very important. If you have
Yeah.
those,
And if you don't mind, I'd like to chime in.
Hey, we can't hear you.
yeah,
Are
it
you
sounds like
serious?
it's far away. Who was that?
We talked about this yesterday, right? No,
That's Peter.
Oh, it's Peter.
yeah.
Peter,
You know what?
you got a screen.
I'm gonna come in on a different device so you can hear me.
Oh, we hear you
Oh, we
now.
heard you now. We heard you now.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, I don't know what happens. I don't know why when it first, but anyway, okay. Well, what I said, Ed, was I'd like to chime in on that real quick.
Oh, yeah, but be my guest.
So I understand your perspective completely, and it makes total sense to me, but there's a different way to think about that as well, right? One of our mentors, Carlos Salguero's most recent deal that he's raising capital for is it Lake? I always forget. It's right outside of Memphis, Lakeland, Tennessee, whatever the name of the town is. That's a brand new building. And what can happen with these, the point of my comment is there are developers that are really good at development, but they're not operators. And they lease the place up super fast and they get it all done. And so Carlos is going after this niche, right? And he's looking for these developers that aren't great operators that want out. And Carlos is going to create massive value in this property in a very short period of time. And one of the things they did is, and I don't know the numbers, I could have it wrong, but call it 35,000 square feet of retail space. And they leased this space. And again, these numbers could be totally wrong, but it doesn't matter what the actual numbers are. Let's say they leased it at $22 a foot and market rent is $32 a foot times 34,000. I mean, that's a big, big number. And if you guys remember that, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, but every dollar you add to that bottom line is worth 20 at a 5 cap. It's worth a little less at a 6 cap, but it's worth a multiple of the dollars that you add. So if you've got 35,000 feet under market by $10 a foot times 20, that's a big, big number. So while intuitively you would think, well, a brand new building, there's no upside. If that developer is really good at developing and makes a nice chunk of money by developing and selling quickly and leases it up fast, there could be massive upside in those deals. So and again, that's like a different level. That's maybe down in the road, but there's no reason why somebody brand new can't come across an opportunity like that and bring it to the team. And my point is, we can close a deal like that, right? We can get somebody's attention like a Carlos Salguero or a Brent Cardone if we come up with a deal like that has enough upside. So maybe not where you want to spend all your time, but don't assume it's not a deal.
Appreciate that, Pete. Now, Pete, question for you. Do you think most of these developers are using bridge loans to get this thing developed and repurposed quickly to get a flip, or?
So I don't know the answer to that question, but my guess would be no, not most of them.
Okay.
Most of them that are doing those type of development are getting a vast majority of their financing from the banks. But, banks are only going to fund those deals at 60%. So yeah, they are raising massive amounts of private capital to totally fund those deals. And they have big incentives to get out and get out quickly, right? Because they've got in that capital stack, they've got preferred equity probably, and then they've got equity, and those equity investors want their money back and they want a nice return. So they're incented to get out quickly.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Appreciate
so a
that,
lot of
guys.
times they hire a management company, and that management company is tasked with get this thing occupied and get it occupied quickly. So many of the tenants are in at under market rents.
Understood. Now, I guess, Ed, going back to what you were talking about with value add and regarding raising rents and evictions and things like that, do you guys have a process of how you guys increase your rents so the current tenants aren't too ruffled where it becomes an eviction process and now you're losing rent after the fact? Or are you guys going to these more landlord friendly states where it's a little bit easier to evict these people? Just because I'm from New York, so New York, everyone favors the tenants, and it's crazy. Obviously, that's why I'm looking down in Arkansas and Georgia and Florida, etc. So I was just curious what you guys' thought process was.
When you're doing
I-
any buying, I would stick to the ones that favor you the most as an investor. So that's typically going to be your red states.
So I live in Los Angeles. I can absolutely relate to you in that because I have the same, obviously, circumstance. So yes, I agree with Eddy. Also, though, I think if you guys were on Sunday's call, you would have heard this a lot from Robert. Luckily, you have property management company that handles that, but you have to make sure they handle it. Like that's their job, is to make sure that they're they're maximizing your opportunity on the property. So the proper management company, I think, is as important as not only picking the right location, because you can have a great location, everything's in your favor, you're dealt the perfect hand, but if your property management company isn't doing their part and making sure that that's communicated to the tenants, and you're not going in there to make improvements as well to justify that, you're going to lose faces to tenants. One thing that I was told by in a mastermind I'm a part of is the first thing they do on every new building and project they buy is they go in and repave the parking lot. There's nothing worse than living in a place that you're scared to enter the driveway or enter the parking lot because you're worried about getting a flat tire. And what's the first thing everyone is gonna do when they're pulling up to their house or their unit is like, oh my God, these new owners are amazing. They're already improving something that we've had an issue with forever. So as much as it is location and whatnot, it's about the operation as well. And at the end of the day, if the tenants are on your side, it'll justify the increase in rents because you're not increasing it over market. You're not being unrealistic. If they were to go somewhere else, they pay the same amount.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, the reason why that I asked, because right now I have two triplexes that I'm currently self-managing. I have my own property management company. So I was very curious about how you guys actually increase the rents and make it. I mean, where I have my rents for my current tenants are at market value, but I'm just curious of what you guys do. And that's a great idea, repaving the parking lot, right? Everyone sees that firsthand. So that's a great idea, Ed.
Yeah, and you remove a headache from your end. Like, you're gonna get those complaints in too at the end of the day. And how much easier is it to go to a tenant and say, hey, we're increasing rent for XYZ, or there's XYZ going on when you just fix the driveway? They're gonna be like, yeah, they did spend a lot of money and time. Like they invested in us before they asked us to invest in them. That's the kind of thought. But put yourself in their shoes. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. Appreciate the answers, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for the questions.
Hey, let's jump into some underwriting because we got some questions that are pertaining to that, and I want to show it as like real life examples. So I'll wait till you get to that point, and then I'll bring some of those questions up in the chat. So if you guys have questions, we are answering them in the chat as well as we go through this. So it's getting popping. Ed, you ready for us?
Yeah. Let me share my screen.
All right, talk to us, Ed. What are we looking at here? It's Dill, where is this? Houston, Texas?
Yeah.
All right,
So
106
this is
units.
one that I had looked at previously, and I just thought it'd be an example where we can run through it. So right off the bat, they do what a lot of, actually, I think someone asked this question where they're doing one thing that a lot of people or agents or brokers seem not to be doing right now, is putting the price, which you think is something that people like would be more publicized, but it's not. So we have Class B, according to this, occupancy at 98. One thing I like to do when I have a few documents and I have multiple things I can look at is I'll first go through the OM because it will give me a lot of the information that I need about the property generally. And then I can dive deep into the T12 and I can dive deep into the rent roll and whatever other data they provide. It just makes it easier for me. If you like it the other way, you can do that too. This is something that I like when brokers put, but always put a little buffer in there and always verify those numbers when it comes to due diligence. So not necessarily something to worry about now, but the rehab is important. As anyone who's familiar with the single family space or was in that space before, you never go under budget, it's always over. Now just scale that by the number of units. Okay, so there's a question in here that I want to get to. Why is pro forma rent important to you instead of actual rent? Seller broker can bump it at for selling purposes. Pro forma rent is the market rent. Like, what can I get on the market for this unit when factoring location, factoring size, and once you really dive deep into it, you want to factor utilities were included, you want to factor the amenities, you want to factor, is there washer dryer hookup or is there laundry on site? Like, all of these things factor into the rent that someone pays and a tenant that's considering a place to live. And that's why diving into the T12 will help you separate what is their actual rental number and what's all that other additional stuff that a tenant can pay for, such as, like I mentioned, even if it's covered parking, for example. What is actual already? That would be current rents. Pro forma rent would be what the future potential is. Like if I stabilize it. I don't know if I'm understanding your question right. So, did I answer it? Can I unmute you, or can you unmute?
Yes. For grant condone, we don't do the pro forma cap rate. That goes when you buy the property already. That's up to you to do that. Don't believe in them. When you do the market, I mean, when you do your napkin underwriting, you don't pay attention to that. You
The
don't.
Cap rate or rent?
Pro forma. The pro
Cap rate or
forma.
rent? The pro forma cap rate or pro forma rent?
Both. Both.
But okay. I can understand the cap rate, but why the rent?
Because that's in the future. What if you're not able to? Because when they say, okay, the pro forma rent will be 2,000 when you're only up to 1,500 per unit, right? So, but then the people leave, so your pro forma cap rate is not effective. So why would you consider that in your napkin underwriting? Which I don't understand.
So we consider the pro forma rents because I want to know what my rents can be if they're up to the market standard.
No, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility in what cash flow you're gonna get it as soon as you buy into the property. Do not, I mean, that's what Grant Cardone said, and I believe in that.
So
But I think you're talking about two different things.
yeah, Eddie, I got it.
Yeah.
Once I got. So my thing is, if it depends the type of property you're building. If I'm buying a property where I need to rehab half, if not more, of percentage of the units, then what the current tenants are paying almost is not a big factor because they're gonna leave anyway. So what the reason why I want to know those numbers is because if I come in, I'm spending the money to rehab a property. I want to know, okay, what is the market rate gonna be for those newly done units once I finish them and then I rent it out? Because the current tenants are not gonna be there tomorrow. So
That's
it's two.
correct.
I think you saw the word. I think you saw the word pro forma and it threw you off. It's what Ed is saying is exactly what it means. We want to know what the actual market rent is. Typically, whatever they're currently renting it at, typically is not what it could be rented at compared to whatever I would be using as like my comp with the highest value.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay.
So if it's a new build and like everything's rehabbed and it's like a ready to go property, then the current rent should be close to my market rent. I'm just coming to make management improvement and add more additional income. That's where your value would be.
But I'm going to make one comment too, Ed. Just you're looking at two different things, right? You've got your offer and your potential. We are never going to make an offer based on pro forma.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Offer is based on current situation, period.
Yes, agree.
We want to look, we want to go ahead and take a look at the pro forma, because if there's no upside, well, we're out, right? We want the upside too. So that's the only reason we're looking at the pro forma, is to know that there's an upside, not because we're going to make an offer on that pro forma. Now, and many people their asking price is based on pro forma, and that's a joke, right? That's
no way,
laughable.
No,
like, if you want the pro forma asking price, do the work. That's the way it works. That's the way life works. Now, if they get somebody stupid enough to come along, and God bless America, right? Somebody with cash can make a big mistake. If they don't educate themselves, oh well. And I think that's why people do it. Right? But yeah, I understand your point completely, but we do want to know that information so we know if we need to go past the NAP.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That was a really good question too, because other people might have gotten confused by that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. All right, so we see Ed is putting in the information. He did the current average rent. He's putting in the market rents. Now, Ed, where did you get that budget from, the 5,000?
So they initially actually have an estimated rehab of 1,000 at 106. That was actually what I was just going to change as well. I wouldn't put it exactly at 1,000. I'd probably put 1,500 per unit, even though they quoted at 1,000, because that may be just for the interior. It may not factor in exterior. It may not factor the parking lot, like we mentioned earlier.
Now hold on, because we may have some people that are brand new. So when you say CapEx, what are we even talking about?
CapEx is just like it says here, is the rehab. It's capital expenditures. You want to make sure that you factor that in up front, because that's money that you're most likely going to have to raise, or if you were to partner with someone or sell the deal or whatever the case is, they would have to. And one more important thing, which kind of like a step further than this, but I want to mention it, is it's going to affect your cash on cash. Your cash on cash is heavily affected by the amount of money you bring to the table day one, and rehab is a part of that equation. Now, I know you get loans and all this other stuff to cover it, but generally speaking, like it's still a cost that you want to account for, because it's not part of your purchase.
Hello. Yes, I
Okay,
have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Vivi.
it's based on the last conversation because I understand that we should not buy things in pro forma, but it's also good for us to look at what the future is going to look like. I'm going to use mine as an example. There was a deal we bought for 1 million. It was a 14 unit, right? The deal was not worth 14 million. It was worth 800 and something. But the we're supposed to buy for 800 and something, but we took note of they were so below the market. They were paying rent of 250, whereas the market was at 900. The upside was just too big for us to ignore. So we bought it at pro forma because we knew that we don't even have to rehab the house. We're just going to bump up rent. And that's what we did. And right now we're at 48% ROI. Now my contribution is, I think it's unique to each property. There is no, yes, we should buy things at current, but I also think you should also look deep at the property to be sure of what really is the upside, just like you guys mentioned, and then take a decision based on that. Because right now, most properties are way above even the pro forma. They are way above the pro forma. But I look at properties individually and take my decision based on it. What is your opinion about that?
So I like a lot of the points you brought up, and I think you mentioned something in your specific example that was important. Is not only do you want to know what the pro forma or market rents or the rents that you could bring the current rents up to. The big question, kind of on the topic of this rehab and CapEx budget, is what is it going to take me to get there? Is it going to take me a year to 2 or a year and a half of rehab? Is it going to take me 100,000 or 150,000? If you do see that opportunity and it's justified, then yeah, I don't disagree with you because clearly it worked for you. So if you have an example that worked, I'm not going to say no, you're wrong. I agree. You showed proof of it, but that's something where you have to always consider what is going to take to get there. In that specific scenario, that's why you may underwrite 100, 150, 200 deals to find the one like that. So I agree that that's definitely something to, and that's kind of like Peter's point. You can have a brand new build. Everything's perfect, it's beautiful, but if it's not managed properly, sure, it can look great, but at the end of the day, you need the operator to put the right people in place and systems to capitalize on what the property offers. So here's the beauty about multifamily. You have so many different strategies that there's no right way to do it. There's hundreds of different ways to do it. We can all each find a different strategy and market and way we want to offer, and we will never collide.
It's whatever way works for you, right? Because everybody, like for example, Ivy brought up something. She's like, I learned this from Grant. He doesn't look at it. But Grant, the way Grant buys is totally different from somebody else just starting too, right? Grant is right now. Grant is sitting on 300 million, just waiting, right? So when he gets that green light, the market gives him the green light. His style of buying is going to be totally different because he's funded on it, right? And so that is important to take in consideration. But I love this because a lot of times, especially if you're just now getting started in this, you don't know that this is how it goes, right? If you're coming from single family space, you're literally looking at this like, okay, show me exactly the one formula I'm supposed to follow. And sometimes it's not one formula, especially if you have a different strategy or exit. So I'm glad everybody's kind of bringing that in so that we can get this. Now, I do have a question for the debt guys that's on here, or debt girls. I'm not sure who else is on here, but I know Peter is, I know Jerry is. We had a question all surrounding this, which is pretty good. Doesn't CapEx increase the interest rate for the loan? Can you apply for a CapEx loan separate after you get the loan? So I think this is a really good question for both of our debt guys on here. If you could unmute. Jerry, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah,
too.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, as far as CapEx, I mean, a lot of it depends on how big the CapEx is. But a lot of times, what I see people doing is they're putting CapEx and they're trying to raise the CapEx separately, like through their, from their investors. If the CapEx isn't, a huge percentage of the total project, they'll try to raise the CapEx just as part of the equity portion. If you have really, really heavy construction and things, those are getting harder to fund, because it's going to be more of a short-term play. And then, the short-term play is looking to the future on what you can then refinance the property out of. And, there's really no guarantees that financing is going to be there at the end currently with the way the market is. When you're getting a bridge type of loan to do a bunch of construction and things, you're going to be at like 50% on a lot of these deals, 50 to 60%, kind of loan to value. Because if we have a couple more, rate hikes, that value at the end of the construction phase and the stabilized value is going to be lower than what you would expect. So as far as right now, I would say a lot of that, CapEx, is probably best to be raised through the equity. So
the comment I would make on CapEx as far as interest rate is, I would say it doesn't necessarily increase your interest rate. What it does is it has to fall within the appropriate percentage that the lender is willing to lend on the deal. And as Jerry said, the bigger the renovation, the harder it is to get funded. Everybody's cutting back their leverage, right? So they want to lend the lowest leverage they can possibly lend.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a small renovation relative to your purchase price, it's a lot easier to get. If your renovation is large compared to the purchase price, it's harder to get the loan. You have to have more experience with larger renovations, but it's not so much your interest rate goes up the higher the leverage you require. And at a certain point, you just can't get the leverage because the lenders just won't go above a certain leverage point. So I hope that answers your question, but I think it's more of a leverage question than an interest rate question.
Yeah, and that was Prod that asked that question. So let us know. You can unmute or just let us know in the chat if that cleared that up. Okay, perfect, got it. All right, so let's go through this. I thought there was another question in here about the annual income of the property. What's the actual annual income that you found?
So here, let me just make this bigger.
And I love how people are following along and trying to input the information into the spreadsheet. That's exactly what you should be doing. If you get it wrong, it's good to get it wrong here than it is to get it wrong when we all get off of this thing, right?
So here's something to consider too when you look in OM. The OM is going to have their existing expense ratio, and sometimes they may put it at like 30 or 35%, where not that that's impossible, but it's coming in, having your taxes increase and coming with new management, and you're going to do a lot of legwork in the beginning. I'm personally hesitant to underwrite it that low in the 35 to 40. It's the taxes increase alone, which you may not see on the OM, is going to shift that greatly. And I want to kind of briefly touch base on that because it is a big deal when it comes to your expenses. When you're looking at an expense ratio, a T12, anything that's on the OM that has to do with expenses, and it lists out the taxes that they are currently paying, remember that the taxes are going to get reassessed. That means your tax rate and bracket and value of the building you're purchasing, once that sale's done, you're not paying anything close to they were and are paying in taxes for the property. So that's one place where I'm automatically off the bat increasing the expenses from what they've told me. So I always like to put a little bit of a buffer in there in addition to what is on the OM, is what is on the T12, just to make sure that I have everything covered, because you don't even know what potential repairs and maintenance they haven't done knowing they're going to sell it, because then those costs just increase their or decrease their NOI. So that's where the expenses can get a little messy, and you'll have a little bit of inaccuracy from the information the broker's telling you directly. So keep that in mind. And it looks like for the most part, we have the current rents, we have the pro forma that they gave us. And then one thing you also want to check is amenities. They do a good job here of giving all the different things that they offer. And rent comparable, tax analysis, unit mix. This is important too, especially when you get to the bigger units. You can see that they have 4 different 1-in-1s, but the sizes are all different. You also may have different layouts and floor plans, so that's something to consider as well. And then of course you want to make sure that you get the average of all of them, factoring in different sizes.
Now, really quick, I just want to point out why that's important. When you really start to dive deeper and you start comparing this property to the one across the street and stuff like that, you may be like, oh, well, the market rent is going to be really good because they got 1 bedrooms, 1 bath across the street that's going for $1,200. But you're not realizing that their square footage and their layout may really affect the difference in price. So it's good to know exactly what you have so you can compare it to exactly what a property that is operating at where it's supposed to, so you can be able to compare that correctly. Now, while you're going through that, we had a question here. So Ivy offered to an investor, she got blown off as the cap rate is 5 and the owner wants 7 to 9%. I know the lower the cap rate, the more expensive it is. To bump up the cap rate is to lower the price. Is that true?
When you're purchasing a property, you want to purchase at a higher cap rate. When you're selling, you want it to a lower cap rate. So one thing when it comes to the cap rate is if your interest rate is higher than your cap rate, you're going to have to put a lot down to make up the difference. So I know that may sound confusing, but yeah, you were correct. Where lower cap rate means higher purchase price, higher cap rate means lower purchase price. But when you're the owner, you want the cap rate to be low. So when you appraise it for like a refinance, for example, you can maximize the value as much as possible.
There it is. Is there a percentage that you add to the taxes? How are you figuring out the taxes?
Taxes, you definitely want to check with like the local county. Each city has like a weight, like a percentage or the formula they have, or basically basis percentage point that the taxes are based off of at the time of reassessment. And you want to make sure you know the number for the city for that specific one. For example, you hear in Texas, taxes are high. Well, then that means their rate is the basis percentage is higher than in any other state that's not as high, I guess. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but for example, if I'm going to Texas, I'm not using the same percentage as I would in Ohio because it's different. Even counties can be different in your backyard. Like if you just look at your own property tax compared to your cousin that lives in a different city, that could be different. That's something to look into. And again, we say this a lot where you are focusing on one market. If you are focusing on one market, you want to learn this stuff. You want to become the expert where if you ask me about Houston and I'm like, okay, I know that number. I don't right now, but you get what I'm saying. Like if Houston's your market, then you double down there and you want to find out this information. In general, I guess to answer the question with the expense ratio, I usually bump it up to anywhere from 3 to 5% more than what they gave me right off the bat, unless I see something in the T12 that I'm like, oh, that's something doesn't look right there, I think that should be higher, then I'll just bump it up a little more.
All right, let's push through. So I want to get, I know some people are trying to see if we can get the right answers at the end of this thing.
Yeah.
Did you say that the interest rate is higher than the cap rate? Wait, sorry. You said the interest is higher than the cap rate, then you would need to put a larger down payment, or the other way around?
You're correct with the first phrase.
The interest is higher than the cap rate.
Because that means it's costing you more to borrow the money than you're making on your money. And every OM is gonna have comps, and then of course the city stuff. And you do want to look at the pictures, absolutely. Then I think that's it for that. And now they did not have an assumable loan, and they did not mention in the OM that they're seller carry, which is fine because we're gonna offer this anyway. So this one's actually close when it comes to the valuation, in large part with the market cap. So if we change it to 7, the valuation of what we can offer goes down. If we were to change it to 5, it goes up.
So let's look at that real quick, right? So the whisper price was 12 million. We got this down as a class B, and they were saying it's a 5% cap rate, right? Now, if we look on the right-hand side, see that they're getting about 1.3 in gross rent. Annual net income is about 638. And you come down, you kind of see what that's the same answer for your operating income. Now, the valuation that we have is at 12.7, and we see a value add. Now, this value add is solely based off of the rent differential. It's not based off of any other value adds that you can put into play. I want to make sure I'm clear, because I don't want you guys to ever turn down a deal because, oh, there's not enough room in the rent, when they may be maxing out on rent, but not really adding in any of the other features like pent rentals or private parking or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just keep that in mind. Now, I often say if the deal has 1.3 value add in just rent, then that even sweetens the pot if I start looking at something like adding washer and dryer rentals to each and every property, right? That's how you want to kind of look at it. Now, when you go below and you see that red section over there, tells you what the NOI is, what the desired market cap rate is, and what the valuation should be. So like he was saying, you're very, very close. But let's look at it from the standpoint of where it really is at. So the cap rate in, what's this, Texas, right? In that particular area, was it 7%, you said?
Usually you're gonna see around 7. And guys, factor this in as well. Cap rate evolves. You know, you want the same cap rate today wasn't the cap rate 5 months ago. So you want to make sure that you're checking it in. And although a website's great, remember, no one's gonna know like someone who sees the market's a living, breathing thing that a broker, property management company, lenders, I think, are a great place to reach out, or a great group to reach out to, because they're gonna be able to be like, they're gonna see it firsthand. So those are, remember one more thing, anytime you're underwriting, anytime you're offering on a property, the lender is going to be one of your best friends, because nobody, especially a bank who's in the business of making money, is going to borrow you money on a failing asset. Imagine the bank as your best friend. If you want your best friend to invest in something and they had your best interest in hand, would they give you money on a losing asset, on a losing deal? Like, if they saw the numbers, they're like, you are going to lose money. This doesn't make sense. And they said, no, I'm not going to let you invest into this. That's what the lender is.
Yeah.
And actually, they're not going to give you an option because the property doesn't qualify now. So a lender is up to date with the market. Become friends with lenders in the areas you want to invest in and you're marketing in. And they're even a great resource like, hey, this person's loan is coming up. reach out to them. Now, maybe they don't give you the contact information, but it's like, hey, I happen to be on the corner of this street and this street. You know what I mean? So it's a relationship business. And the lenders have access to a lot of information. So that they're definitely a big resource.
Perfect. So in this case, in this scenario, this would be a deal that we'll definitely submit, right? So we hit the submit form, put all the details in, and then we'll take it to the next level for the underwriting. All right. So I want to kind of recap and see if everybody got that, or did we miss anything or any questions on how to kind of run through that. Let me see, show everybody. All right, perfect, perfect. Any questions, anything? If you're good, give me like a thumbs up, visual, or put ones in the chat. Let's make sure we're all good on this. And by the way, I absolutely love all the questions and everything, because it's very hard sometimes when you don't even know that you had that question. And then somebody says something, you be like, oh yeah, that's a good question. That happens to me all the time, right? So good, glad everybody's getting it. All right, I wanna do one. Ed, do you have one more?
To run through?
Yeah, but I just want you to run it. I don't want you to talk through nothing. I just want you to plug numbers and go.
I don't right now. Let me see if I have something.
All right.
I have a question.
I
Yes.
just emailed you one, so you do have one.
All right, perfect. Ed, you can pull that up. Go ahead. Is it Ivy or Ivy?
Ivy,
Ivy, okay. Sorry. Yes, Ivy.
I didn't notice the DCR there, that we don't compute the DCR. That also will help us how much we can put equity down and syndicate our investors.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
that's all.
Yeah. But again, this is just the napkin, right? We want to see, is this worth taking to that step that you're talking about, right? Because one of the worst things you want to do is invest a lot of time and effort in a deal and then realize, damn, there's not enough value add in this. What are we doing, right? So that's the first step. The point of the napkin is to be able to say, there's value add in the simplest of things, which would be a rent increase. What's our projected CapEx? And are we way, way off with what they're asking and what it should be valued at? Those three things are your most important answers in a napkin, right? So if for example, we had deals, it was like $60 million what we won. We were like, this is like 15 million, right? Something like that. There's not even a point of responding back, right? Let's just, they're not ready yet. Okay, they might be in this market. There's a bunch of people that's filling out testers just to want to see, would the market give me 60 million? And their answer is absolutely not. Hell no, right? But they're going to put it on anyway. Now you can save that person, build the relationship with that broker, and you're just following up back on those type of deals, right? But if it's close enough where we can say, well, hey, like in that particular deal, it just wasn't an option. There was no assumable loan. There was no mention of seller carry, or the person who brought the deal didn't ask that question to the broker. But if they were, and we were that close, well, I would still, even if we were a little bit far, I would still submit an offer that would have some sort of seller carry. And you see what I'm saying? Because the opportunity is there, and maybe we just need to figure out what's what. But if it's far off, don't waste your time. And one other thing, this is why it's important for you guys to pick your markets. Right? Like you cannot, unless you have a team, you cannot become an expert in 6 markets. It's impossible, right? Pick one market. 2, if you really feel like you're a superstar and you want to pick that market so you can learn the ins and out of that market, but also so you can build your boots on the ground team, those relationships. Thank you. That you need, right? Like you need to be able to build relationships with project managers and contractors, and so that when you want to get like, hey, tell me a little bit more about this property, you're dealing with someone who, one, has invested time with you, but also you're dealing with someone that knows the area. If I'm calling in Nebraska and this is the first time I'm calling, like who knows who I'm going to get on the phone? That person might just hate their job that day. And now I'm relying on them for important information to decide if I'm going to be able to spend a couple $1 million. Right? So awesome.
That's true too. My addition is the first thing I ask the broker is, are the sellers owners open to terms? And if not, I just don't bother.
Yeah. And in this market, so I mean, if you guys weren't on the call on Sunday, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it. It was a really good call, and the type of knowledge that they were dropping was incredible. But to give you just one of the most important parts in this market, nobody should be rushing to buy a deal like it's out of style right now. Like, I know it's tough, especially if you're new. You're like, I just can't wait. I want to get to 100 doors and 1,000 doors and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But if you rush, I promise you, you will get into a deal that you think is great, but end up just being okay while you watch all the great deals go right past you because you've already committed your time and your capital raise into a deal that looked great at the time, but it's because you were rushing it, right? You're rushing the process. Bibi, go ahead.
Yes, I know this on Napkin Underwriting, but I was having a conversation with one of my property managers, and we're arguing about loss to lease and concessions and all that. I was telling him those things reduces the NOI and all that. So he was coming from the opinion that since they are not physical cash, that you're not losing anything, that the income you have is just the income. You don't have to deduct your loss to lease or your vacancies and I told him, I said, no, that's not how they do it. So we kept on having the argument and I decided to just say, okay, please, let's move on and all that. So what do I tell that kind of person? Is my property manager, if he doesn't know that I'm losing money from concessions or I'm losing money from loss to lease or I'm losing money from vacancies, how do I interpret it to him that these things are not helping my NOI?
Yeah. You do it by starting interviews to other property management companies.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, I mean, when you're running a business, right? For me, my biggest struggle in the beginning, especially coming from a single family space, was I was looking at multifamily the way I was looking at single family, which is much easier for you to be able to have the story along with you, right? The tenant didn't pay rent. Why you didn't pay me rent? Well, we lost our job, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's super easy to have the story come along. When you're in multifamily, you are running a business. It just so happens that people are paying rent, but that is the smallest, most insignificant part of the entire process. You are only looking at spreadsheets, numbers, and it sounds heartless, but in this space, the bigger the heart that you have when you're working and dealing with your numbers, the fastest you will lose money and end up trying to figure out how did you lose out on this deal. And now you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay back all these investors, right? You cannot be looking at this from a standpoint of anything other than this is a business that I need to operate. So if I'm dealing with a vendor that is working for me and they're having a hard time understanding the words that are coming out my mouth, I will find another vendor that speaks my language and can get the job done. Because if not, you have to look at what's the bigger responsibility here? It's not, the bigger responsibility is not even the rent that the shelter you're providing. Mm-hmm. The bigger responsibility is the promise that you made to your lenders, mm-hmm. Yes. To the people who believed in you and your team and your dream, and they took their 401k that they've been working for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and they put all of that into you, and they said, please make this grow, mm-hmm. so that I can leave something to my generations that will be coming behind me. That's the pressure that you have. So when you have that in the back of your mind, and you're talking to a property management company that's trying to tell you that they know better than you, listen, no love lost, no hard feelings. Thank you. Come again, right? Let's find someone else who can be able to get the job done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we got, like Peter said, $1 increase is $20 increase in value. And on the flip side, $1 less is $20 less in overall value. My man, great job. Great job. All right, awesome. So listen, I want to actually wrap this up. The last couple of nights, we've been like really stressing you guys out and pushing it way past 9:30. And you guys have been rocking with us, and we love it. But we do want to keep this to a point where there's accountability. We're going to come in and we're going to knock it out, and you guys can get back to your lives and everything that you got fun going on, right? So what I want to be able to do is do this. Does everybody have this spreadsheet? If you do not, in fact, instead of just asking, I'm going to repost it back in here. Somebody said something about 252 units. I'm sorry, I might have missed that. I really apologize. I'll try my best to stay on the chat. Whoever had something about 252 units, just speak up real quick. Carmen, was that you?
Yes, I know it's late. That's okay. We can do it another time. It's up to you guys.
So it's a actual a deal that you have, is what you're saying?
Something that I found in LoopNet is posted.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. You have this video. You watched us do it. I just put the link in the chat. What I want you to do is try to do the napkin underwriting, right? Even if you don't do it all the way, right? I just want you to try to do the napkin underwrite. Go ahead and submit it. And then what we'll do is we'll get on the phone with you by tomorrow and go through if you got stuck on a napkin, and if you didn't get stuck on a napkin, we'll do the elevated under napkin with you. How does that sound?
Okay, yeah, I have it here, and it's asking me for the email and all that as usual.
Wait, say it again. What is it asking
Yeah,
for?
I submitted, and it's asking me for the email and name and phone like you showed before. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yep. Put that in. Awesome. All right. So we are out. I really appreciate everybody again for coming through and making it not extremely lonely to be on here by myself. But hey, I'm dedicated, right? And I love the fact that we found our community. We found our group of people who are willing to do the same. Listen, I get it. We step away from our families, our loved ones, our time that we would be doing anything else to be on here and learning, and iron sharpens iron, and really being able to put ourselves in a position. And I want to commend you all. And I want to tell you to keep it going. We have to earn our stripes. And this is what it takes. It's not an easy road, but it is a road that is worth all of the crap that we are going through, right? All of the struggles, the late nights. Some of you have beautiful hair. You're going to lose a lot of it. Some of you look very young and amazing. And you're going to end up looking a little bit older, but you'll be looking, all of you will look beautiful when you're telling people that you now own hundreds of units with friends and people that you care for that have been through the battle and working it out with you. And I'm telling you guys, like in this group alone, there are people that you're going to do multifamily deals with. And it's going to be great because you never would have thought it, right? Like Chris might call me tomorrow, say I got something, and it doesn't work. And then 2 years from now, we end up meeting somewhere, connecting, found a deal, and now we're like, we're doing this deal together. This is crazy, right? We met on a Zoom, right? And this is what it takes. Now, I'm gonna leave one advice. Dara said, I'm already repping that Michael Jackson look. Listen, I got you, bro. I get you. So here's the one advice that I would give everyone here. We started doing a content accountability type of Zoom. It's something that we're doing. We're doing it in-house. We're probably opening up to everybody soon. But the one advice that I would tell you guys is please do not be a multifamily ninja investor. Do not be a multifamily CIA investor or a 007 investor. Like, people need to know that you are in the multifamily space. If you don't do nothing else, what you should do is every week for the next 8 weeks, take a screenshot of yourself on this call and post it to whatever social media thing that you want. And I want you to type learning how to do napkin underwrites for multifamily deals. And I'm telling you, like this, you can tag me if you want. You don't have to tag me. I'm not telling you this so that you can make me feel good. I'm telling you this because your friends and family and people that are watching you that don't tell you that they're watching you, but they watch you, right? Your coworkers and all this other stuff. What's happening is every week they're seeing you putting in the work. They just came from the movies. They go to the Instagram. They see you put in work. They just came from eating. They go to Instagram or social media. They see you put in work. You're putting in work. Now, what happens when you fast forward 2 months from now, 3 months from now, you are standing in front of a multifamily unit with a couple of friends and say, hey, we were looking at this one. We underwrote it. It looks great. Come take a look with us. And you're going through and you're showing them, and it clicks for the people that are watching you. Now in their mind, they're saying, wow, I saw Ivy. She's really, this is the line they're going to say. She's really serious about this. Because you've showed them the story, the storyboard of I'm doing the work, and now I'm at the multifamily. Now I'm talking to the brokers. Now I'm doing et cetera, et cetera. You want that because I promise you, one day soon, you're going to be on your phones in front of a multifamily unit. You can say, hey, everybody, what's going on? We're about to check this one out. We actually are in contract. We're going to buy this one. It's going to be great. Just me, my friends, and it's going to be a great time. If you want to come see it, or if you just got some questions, give me a call. And I promise you, Carmen, your phone is going to be nonstop. People are going to beg to give you money, or how can I work with you? Or I have a deal. My cousin's uncle who got a dog has a multifamily unit and they want to sell it to you because I told them I knew somebody. Like, this is how you build your backyard of business. All the money that you need for your deals is going to come from this. All the deals that are off market that you had no idea people knew that was something that you were interested in, that's going to come from it. And people who want to partner with you and bring you the resources. Like I said at the beginning of this call, I was at another property looking at a 17 unit, and the individual that was there was like, oh man, I remember you, this, and third. Yeah, I have tons of buyers. Do you have any multifamily deals? And I was like, absolutely I do. I might have one or two. Yeah, maybe. Right? But she only knew to approach me because she's been seeing what I've been doing. So please, I beg you, you guys are doing so much work. You are dedicating so much time. Don't skip doing the small stuff of documenting. No one's expecting you to be a specialist. And to be honest with you, nobody cares. But they will care that you're showing what you're doing and you're showcasing that you have what it takes to make it. And they will love to become part of that, right? They want to, because they don't have nobody else. You guys are the individuals that's going to change the people's lives that, get this, already know you. And there's people who have no idea who Natasha T is. None. They walk past her every other day at the park. But they're walking their dog, have no idea who it is. And just by happenstance, because of what you're going to do, you're going to impact and change not just their life, but their generations to come. Because I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, real estate, especially at this level, is the best thing that you can invest in. The stock market is crazy. The dollar seems to be losing value faster than they can print money to make it happen. You want to be able to back yourself with an asset, and no matter what we do on God's green earth, people are always going to need a place to stay. I don't care who's the president. If it's somebody you like, somebody you don't like, people still need a place to stay. Unfortunately, wars happen. If one country is in war, if another country is in war, people still need a place to stay. If we run out of food, people will still need a place to stay. And if you put your investment dollars and your strategy behind that, it will put you in a place where you'd be glad that you did everything that you guys are doing now. I'm super, super proud of you all. Let me let you guys go. Have a great night. Stay charged up. See you soon. Peace.